Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the first full committee markup of the 113th Congress. I want to thank all the members for getting here in a timely fashion this morning. I also want to thank the ranking member for working with us to bring this slate of bills to the full committee in a very bipartisan fashion. And everybody knows we have a full slate to discuss today. We do have a joint session scheduled for 10:30 this morning, so I will forego my opening statement and yield to our ranking member, Mr. Michaud.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We are here this morning to mark up 5 bills that has been worked on in a bipartisan manner, and I know we have a busy schedule today as well as going in session. So, I'd like the chairman would ask my remaining remarks be entered into the record.
Without objection, so ordered, and I will now call up H.R. 671 as amended, and the clerk shall report.
H.R. 671 as amended, to amend Title 38 United States Code to improve the disability compensation evaluation procedure of the Secretary of Veterans Affairs for veterans with mental health conditions related to military sexual trauma and for other purposes.
The bill was circulated in advance pursuant to our committee rules, and without objection, the first reading is dispensed with. The bill is now open for amendment at any point.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment in nature of a substitute at the desk.
Now the clerk shall report.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 671 as amended, offered by Mr. Michaud of Maine.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment in the nature of a substitute be dispensed with. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The gentleman is now recognized in support of his amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The amendment in nature of substitute to H.R. 671 is an attempt to express the will of Congress that the VA update and improve its regulations regarding military sexual trauma. These regulations simply must be updated to ensure that MST is specified as a in-service stressor and determined service connection of PTSD. And I know the amendment has been distributed earlier, so without further ado, I'd ask the committee to adopt the amendment in nature of substitute.
I thank the ranking member, and his amendment does in fact have my full support, and I'd ask, is there any discussion on the amendment in the nature of a substitute and H.R. 671 as amended? Since no other amendments were timely filed, the question now occurs on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 671 as amended. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Is there any more discussion on the bill as amended? Hearing none, the question now occurs on the passage of Bill H.R. 671 as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. I now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Michaud, for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that H.R. 671 as amended be reported favorably to the House of Representatives.
There's a motion before us to report H.R. 671 as amended favorably to the full House. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. H.R. 671 as amended is favorably reported to the full House. I now call up H.R. 1405 as amended, and the clerk shall report.
H.R. 1405 as amended, to amend Title 38 United States Code to require the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to include an appeals form in any notice of decision issued for the denial of a benefit sought.
The bill was circulated in advance pursuant to our committee rules, and without objection, the first reading is dispensed with. The bill is open for amendment at any point.
Mr. Chairman, I know Mr. Titus has an amendment in the nature of a substitute, and I see Ms. Titus is here
coming in
today, and I do support Ms. Titus's amendment in the nature of a substitute, which is to improve the appeals process by requiring the VA appeals form to be included in the notice of decision letter.
The clerk shall report.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 1405 as amended, offered by Ms. Titus of Nevada.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment in the nature of a substitute be dispensed with. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The gentlelady is now recognized in support of her amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize. This bill, H.R. 1405, which would improve the appeals process by requiring that a VA appeals form be included with a notice of decision letter instead of waiting for a veteran to exercise his or her appeal rights before sending the form to the veteran. It would expedite the time frame in which veterans file an appeal and will provide better consumer service to those veterans that are already struggling with huge delays and endless bureaucracy, which we have heard quite a bit about. The amendment in the nature of a substitute would also include language from two other bills, H.R. 679, the Honor America's Guard Reserve Retirees Act, introduced by Representative Walls of Minnesota, as well as Mr. Runyan's bill, H.R. 733, the Access to Veterans Benefits Improvement Act, and Mr. Johnson's bill, H.R. 894, to reform VA's fiduciary program. I appreciate the input from a number of VSOs regarding these bills, and I look forward to the adoption of this amendment.
Thank you very much, Ms. Titus, and I think it's a great idea. Your amendment has my full support, and I would ask, is there any further discussion on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 1405 as amended? Mr. Walls.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just take 30 seconds on this. Thanks to you and the ranking member. Thanks to Subcommittee Chairman Runyan and Ranking Member Titus for incorporating 679 in this. We've been at this for several Congresses. I tell the new members who haven't heard this before, 20 years in the Guard and Reserve, honorable service, do your time, do trainings, do whatever, never called to Title 10 active duty. At the end of that time, you cannot call yourself a veteran. And this is for those of you who have served, know that you do not use a term that you're not honored and have the right to do so. No more benefits, not a penny of cost, simply honoring them as veterans of the service. And so I thank you for bringing this forward, and I hope we can move it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Waltz. Since no other amendments were timely filed, the question now occurs on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 1405 as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Is there any more discussion on the bill as amended? Hearing none, the question now occurs on passage of the bill H.R. 1405 as amended, and all those in favor will say aye. Aye. The opposed, no. The ayes have it. I now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Michaud, for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move that H.R. 1405 as amended be reported favorably to the House of Representatives.
There's a motion before us to report H.R. 1405 as amended favorably to the full House. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. H.R. 1405 as amended is favorably reported to the full House. And I now call up H.R. 570. The clerk shall report.
H.R. 570, to amend Title 38 United States Code to provide for annual cost of living adjustments to be made automatically by law each year in the rates of disability compensation for veterans with service-connected disabilities and the rates of dependency and indemnity compensation for survivors of certain service-connected disabled veterans.
Thank you. And again, ladies and gentlemen, the bill was circulated in advance pursuant to the committee rules, and without objection, the first reading is dispensed with. The bill is now open for amendment at any point.
Mr. Chairman.
I recognize Mr. Runyan, Chairman of the Disability Assistance and Memorial Affairs Subcommittee, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just make a few remarks that don't have an amendment, but the H.R. 570 is the American Heroes COLA Act. This bill, which I introduced in the beginning of the 113th Congress, seeks to make permanent the annual increase to veterans' disability compensation rates and their benefits by tying the increase to the cost of living adjustment for Social Security benefits. With the passage of this bill, the American Heroes COLA Act, veterans will never again have to depend on congressional action to receive an increase to the cost of living adjustment they have more than earned throughout their service. Instead, this increase will become automatic from year to year. As some of you may recall, last year our annual COLA bill was held up in the Senate with reports that there had been a secret hold put on the bill by a senator. There was some question as to whether the bill would pass and if veterans would receive their annual COLA adjustment in a timely manner. This situation, frankly, is and was unacceptable and unfair to American veterans. Thankfully, with pressure from this committee and the veterans community, the annual COLA bill was ultimately passed and signed into law. However, last year's situation highlights the critical need for a permanent COLA fix. As chairman of the committee on subcommittee on disability assistance and memorial affairs, I'm honored to again sponsor this legislation, and I'm proud to have our DAMA member, ranking member, Ms. Titus, as the lead co-sponsor of the bill. Mr. Chairman, I want to personally thank you for your assistance in making the legislation a priority for committee, and thank all members of the committee for your time and consideration. I encourage all of you to support H.R. 570, the American Heroes COLA Act, and I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Runyan, Ms. Titus, for your work on this particular piece of legislation. I want the members of the committee to know that there is a significant savings that is associated with this piece of legislation, and I'm committed to working with all committee members, and Ranking Member and I have begun to discuss the best way to reinvest the savings that are made with this particular piece of legislation for our veterans before we bring the full legislation to the floor. Since no other amendments were timely filed, the question now occurs on passage of H.R. 570. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. I now recognize Mr. Michaud for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move H.R. 570 be reported favorably to the House of Representatives.
There's a motion before us to report H.R. 570 to the full House favorably. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. H.R. 570 is favorably reported to the full House. And I'll call up H.R. 1412. The clerk shall report.
H.R. 1412, to improve and increase the availability of on-job training and apprenticeship programs carried out by the Secretary of Veterans Affairs and for other purposes.
The bill has been circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules, and without objection, the first reading shall be dispensed with. The bill is open to amendment at any point. Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment in the nature of a substitute at the desk.
The clerk shall report.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 1412, offered by Mr. Kaufman of Colorado.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment be dispensed with. Hearing no objection, so ordered. The gentleman is now recognized in support of his amendment in the nature of a substitute. Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a way to encourage employers to participate in VA's OJT apprenticeship program, my amendment in the nature of a substitute would temporarily reduce the final salary paid by an employer to 75% of the wage normally paid to a fully trained employee for 4 years. The current rate is 85%. After completion of all training, the veteran would receive the full wage for that position. During the recession, many state approving agencies told us that employers were reluctant to participate because they could not afford the final temporary salary. As a result, veterans who would normally have had an opportunity to use their GI Bill benefits were not able to find OJT apprenticeship programs. It is my hope that this small adjustment will incentivize more employers to offer training to veterans who prefer employer-based training to more formal school-based programs. I ask my colleagues to support the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Thank the gentleman for his amendment in the nature of a substitute. He has my full support. Mr. Michaud has asked for recognition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also looked at the amendment, and I support the amendment in the nature of a substitute. This amendment will increase on-the-job opportunities for veterans, and I would urge my colleagues to support it, and I want to thank the gentleman for offering it.
Any other comments? Thank you very much. Since there's no other amendments were timely filed, the question is now on the amendment in the nature of substitute to H.R. 1412. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Is there any more discussion on the bill as amended? Hearing none, the question now occurs on passage of H.R. 1412 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. I now recognize Ranking Member Michaud for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that H.R. 1412 as amended be reported favorably to the House of Representatives.
There is a motion before us to favorably report H.R. 1412 as amended to the full House. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. H.R. 1412 as amended is favorably reported to the full House. I now call up H.R. 357 as amended, and the clerk shall report.
H.R. 357, to amend Title 38 United States Code to require courses of education provided by public institutions of higher education that are approved for purposes of the educational assistance programs administered by the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to charge veterans tuition and fees at the in-state tuition rate.
The bill was circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules, and without objection, the first reading is dispensed with. The bill is open for amendment at any point, and I have an amendment in the nature of a substitute at the desk and ask the clerk to report.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 357, offered by Mr. Miller of Florida.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 357 be dispensed with. Hearing no objections, so ordered. And I want to tell you real quickly that my amendment in the nature of a substitute consists of 13 sections and includes several bills introduced by members of this committee from both sides of the aisle, and I want to thank each of you in advance for working on these provisions. The substance of this begins with my Section 3, which essentially is the original H.R. 357 to require public institutions of higher learning to charge out-of-state veteran students no more than the in-state fee charged to other students. If the entity responsible for setting tuition policy for a public institution or institutions chooses not to comply, that institution or institutions would no longer be eligible to enroll new veteran students. Veterans already attending would be grandfathered in and would continue to receive their GI Bill benefits. At the EO subcommittee markup, the original bill was amended by Mr. Runyan to allow schools an extra year to come into compliance. Section 4 and 5 reflect Mr. Kaufman's bill, H.R. 1402, that would extend the existing VA U.S. Paralympic Adaptive Sports Program through 2018 at a cost of $10 million per year. According to the U.S. Paralympics, at least 14,000 disabled veterans have participated in this adaptive sports program from the grassroots level up to the 15 disabled veterans on the London U.S. Paralympic team. Section 6 clarifies that formerly homeless veterans living in HUD-VASH housing and incarcerated veterans are eligible for job placement and training services under the Homeless Veteran Reintegration Program. This provision was originally introduced by Mr. Winstrup as H.R. 1305. Section 7 extends eligibility for VA vocational rehabilitation and employment benefits to disabled veterans from the current 12 years to 17 years. The ranking member of the subcommittee on economic opportunity, Mr. Takano, brought this to the committee as H.R. 844, and I want to thank him for his legislation and this bipartisan bill. Section 8 is another initiative introduced by Mr. Takano that would extend VA's existing work-study program through June 30th of 2018. It's a great program that helps both veteran students and the VA, and I want to thank him again. Section 9 was introduced by the chairman of the EO subcommittee, Mr. Flores. It would finally specify a minimum set of duties for the directors of Veterans Employment and Training and the assistant directors. These are federal employees stationed in each state to oversee the performance of the state workforce development system services to unemployed veterans. Section 10 would require that detailed training on how to make the best use of the GI Bill be included in the mandatory curriculum in the Transition Assistance Program, or TAP. Currently, such training is optional, and someone who intends to enroll in college using their post-9/11 benefit could be denied the opportunity to attend. As a reminder, the post-9/11 GI Bill can be worth nearly $300,000. We need to ensure that our service members understand how to make the best use of that particular benefit, and Mr. Flores introduced these provisions under H.R. 631. Section 11 would extend the existing Veterans Retraining Assistance Program, or VRAP, for 3 months through June of 2014 to enable participants to continue being paid for training through what is a traditional spring semester. I originally introduced this provision as H.R. 562. Section 12 would increase the rates of disability compensation and dependency and indemnity compensation by providing a cost of living adjustment to those programs. And this bill was originally introduced by Chairman Runyan. I thank he and all the members of the Subcommittee on Disability Assistance and Memorial Affairs for bringing this provision to our full committee. And finally, Section 13 would put a 5-year moratorium on bonuses for all senior managers in the senior executive service at the Department of Veterans Affairs. At a time when our country is facing such perilous fiscal problems and with so many bonuses being provided by the VA to poor performers, I think it's time to hold the bonuses back, at least for the time being. I'm not proposing this as a way to denigrate the efforts of so many hardworking SES employees, but in light of recent events that we have all seen and heard about in the media, I think this provision is warranted. I support each of the provisions that I have discussed. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to join me in supporting H.R. 357 as amended. Is there any more discussion on the amendment in the nature of a substitute? Mr. Michaud.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do support the amendment in the nature of a substitute. As the chairman had mentioned, the amendment includes many of the bills that our colleagues here on the committee support. I think it's a good piece of legislation. I'd urge your adoption. I yield back.
Any other discussion? Thank you very much. No other amendments were timely filed, so the question now occurs on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 357 as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Is there any more discussion on the bill? If not, the question now occurs on passage of the bill H.R. 357 as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Mr. Michaud, you are recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move that H.R. 357 as amended be reported favorably to the House of Representatives.
There's a motion before us to report 357 as amended favorably to the full House. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes have it. H.R. 357 as amended is favorably reported to the full House. I now call up H.R. 602.
H.R. 602, to amend Title 38 United States Code to clarify the conditions under which certain persons may be treated as adjudicated mentally incompetent for certain purposes.
The bill has been circulated in advance pursuant to committee rules, and without objection, the first reading is dispensed with. Under current practices, veterans who have fiduciary appointed to them to manage their financial affairs are deemed to be mentally defective. The purpose of the VA's fiduciary program is to protect veterans who are unable to manage their VA benefits. This is accomplished through VA's appointment to a fiduciary, or of a fiduciary. That's it. It's a system designed to help the veteran manage their finances. Ultimately, the government appoints a third party to manage that beneficiary's finances. Let me offer you a corollary. The Social Security Administration's Representative Payee Program. According to the Social Security Administration, all legally incompetent adults are required to have a representative payee or a fiduciary. So here again, the government ultimately appoints a third party to manage the beneficiary's finances. But here's the difference. The veteran who served this nation honorably and who is receiving benefits earned is referred to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And in fact, they are placed on the list of the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, or NICS. The Social Security beneficiary is not. The ramification of this completely arbitrary action is that the veteran who has been deemed unable to manage their finances loses his or her right to possess or acquire a firearm. The Social Security beneficiary who was also deemed unable to manage money does not wind up on any such list or lose any constitutional right because of it. This is discriminatory. For veterans alone, the need for assistance in managing one's finances is equated with a presumption of incapacity in other areas of their life. It's arbitrary, it's inconsistent, and it is unreasonable. A determination that a veteran cannot handle their own finances is not a determination that they are a threat to themselves or to the public. Thus, the bill I offer is both fair and uncomplicated. H.R. 602 says that if the VA makes a determination, there has to be a judicial decision to put them on the NICS list. That is the standard elsewhere in the federal government, and it should be the standard by which our veterans are held. Taking away a constitutional right is a serious action and one that should not be taken lightly, particularly when it concerns those who have lived the traditions of honor, commitment, and selfless service to our nation. For that reason, I hope that you can join me in support of veterans' rights and favorably vote for H.R. 602. And I would ask, are there any amendments to H.R. 602? Seeing none, I want to thank all the members that have talked with me about this particular piece of legislation. This is an opportunity to correct a wrong in the system today. And I would ask if there's any more discussion on H.R. 602. Since no amendments were timely filed, the question now occurs on H.R. 602. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. I now recognize Mr. Lamborn for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we report H.R. 602 favorably to the full House.
All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. H.R. 602 is favorably reported to the full House. Now, summarizing today's votes, the committee has voted to favorably report H.R. 671 as amended, H.R. 1405 as amended, H.R. 570, H.R. 1412 as amended, H.R. 357 as amended, and H.R. 602 favorably to the full House. I ask unanimous consent that committee staff be authorized to make technical corrections and conforming changes to the bills that have been favorably reported today. Hearing no objections, so ordered. I want to thank the members for their attendance today, and this committee is adjourned.